the first question that was asked in the initial flyer itself that we posted on the website, on the page, was what is the advantage of en bloc resection, and does it give better cancer-free survival or a lesser recurrence? This was asked by Dr. Gautam Banga.
So I will answer that question. The thing is that if you go through the literature, there are variable studies. The two studies from India, which have come from SGPGI 2012 and 2014, both claim that the cancer recurrence-free survival has been longer. The delay to the first recurrence has been more in cases where it was done as en bloc. So this is the Indian study and this is the Indian literature, so I can quote only that. But well, I think we need to be more skeptical on this, means because these studies are small, we need to have multi-central trial, we need to have multiple surgeons, because it may be good in somebody's hands. Whether it is good at everybody's hands is something that needs to come out, because there has to be a reason. You see, I would have been happier to address a question that if it started 20 years ago, 2 decades ago, why it has not been picked up. So obviously we are evolving. Those who chose to evolve have evolved. But to claim that it can cause less recurrence or a larger cancer-free survival is something which we have to take with a pinch of salt, because the studies are not fully powered, adequately powered. As far as why I do it, I have told you the energy that I'm using has a depth of 0.4 millimeter. It leaves behind an uninflamed tissue layer. So there is very little inflammation to repair that bit. And that is why there is no dysuria. So that is my single most important reason to do this.
Yes. Yeah, Dr. Aditya.
Yeah, so as Tanuja sir rightly said, there is evidence is very thin about recurrence issue, because recurrence is, first of all, is multifactorial. Operative technique per se predicting recurrence over 3 years or 5 years, it is very difficult to find out also, because there are many factors involved and you have to nullify all other factors to find out whether actually operative technique worked in that case. Apart from that, in the systematic reviews and the meta-analyses which I have seen, and mostly the most prominent ones I shared, there is no difference in terms of recurrence.
Yes.
There are certain differences, of course, in terms of perioperative morbidity, that may be bleeding, bladder irritation, and all those things. So there have been some limited studies which have shown that where the tumor comes as T1G3 and you have to go and re-TURBT. But those studies have shown that if it has done an en bloc, you don't need a re-TURBT, and there was no tumor upgradation in those cases. But those are again limited series.
Yeah, so that's what the meta-analysis have shown, that there is more bulk of muscle tissue, right? And the chances of perforation are lesser if you're using laser. This is the same meta-analysis that you quoted, right?
Right.
So that is why the perioperative morbidity decreases, and you don't need bladder irrigation in some cases.
Correct.
So I'll move on to the next question. Taneja sir, are you with us? So
Hello.
This is a question from Dr. Jeremy Teo.
Yeah.
And the question is, what is your advice for tumors on the dome, especially if you're using a end-firing laser fiber? And hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I answer that? Yes.
Yes, sir.
So if you have a tumor at the dome, you have to first stabilize the bladder. The most important thing is to stabilize the bladder. So you have to have a very limited inflow of the irrigant, because what happens is when we do a cystoscopy, we put in the scope and we get the irrigant with a full flow, and the bladder distends and makes the bladder thinner. So when you're looking at a tumor which is hanging from the dome or the anterior wall, then the moment you go in, you fill the bladder partially and reduce the flow to just a trickle, a very minimal trickle, just to keep the vision of the probe, that the laser fiber that you have in your vision. So if you have that, and then you may ask your assistant to stabilize the anterior abdominal wall so that it is all stable. The most important thing is that I don't do TRBTs under spinal anesthesia, because the
Yes.
biggest risk with a dome tumor is patient coughs and then you are into the intestine. The most important thing is that you have to have TURBT. You should insist, especially if it is anterior wall TURBT, you should insist on a general anesthesia. That is important. So when you're doing something like on the dome, the trick is to do it under general anesthesia, fill the bladder to partial filling, reduce the irrigant to a trickle, have an assistant to stabilize the anterior abdominal wall, and then use your fiber to chisel out the tumor as I've shown. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you. So I'll move to the next question. And this is to both of you. Dr. Himesh Gandhi has asked, is there any advantage or disadvantage of using thulium fiber, thulium laser instead of holmium laser?
See, thulium has an inherent coagulative effect. So thulium will cause more coagulation. So will result in a specimen which is not histologically as good as after holmium. So that is the advantage of holmium that we have. And then the depth of the penetration in thulium is again more than the holmium.
Dr. Aditya.
So, like sir said, the only issue with any laser specimen is charring. Holmium causes maximum charring. It doesn't bleed at all. It's like you are passing
Yeah.
knife over butter. So that's a real issue. And apart from that, the dome, I think the only thing I can ever try is with laser. It is not real. I would really not suggest somebody to do it with conventional loop and cautery current, because bladder spasm, even obturator jerk, even if the tumor is not on lateral wall, it has been observed anywhere. The cautery can be activated and it can have obturator jerk. So that is very important. But with laser, as I said, very much possible.
Thank you. So there are two questions from Dr. Nitin Gadgil. First question is, can we use low power laser machine for endoscopic resection of bladder tumor?
Yes. So I can take that question. The question is not about the power of the machines. It is about the frequency settings. So if you notice, I have a 0.5 joules per shock and multiplied by 20 hertz. So if you have a machine which can deliver that, you can do that. Actually, I'm using 10 watts.
Yeah.
But why I'm using a high machine, 100-watt machine, is because I have the liberty of switching the frequency from 0.5 to 0.5 into 20 to 0.5 into 40. Suppose when I'm doing at the base, at the trigon, and I'm confident that now I made a plane and I will not go wrong, I switch on to from 20 hertz to 40 hertz. Now this liberty you have with very limited machines. So if your machine can deliver this kind of frequency with low power, there is no harm. The problem is when you set up a machine with a 10 watts and you have 1 watt per joule, 1 joule per shock, and then you have a frequency of 10 hertz, then that is also 10 watt laser, but then that is a bad 10-watt laser for
Yeah.
a TRBT.
Because the depth will be more. Right.
Yes, the injury will be more. You
Yes.
will not have a control. The
Yes.
control will be much better when you have a lower energy and high frequency.
Yes. Another
So
question.
I have a
Yeah.
question to Dr. Taneja sir in this same regard. Do you use longer pulse width while you are doing bladder tumor? Because your fiber is hardly fluttering. We have seen in most of the, even the luminous laser earlier generation, there is a lot of flutter of the fiber. It moves
So,
side by
so
side. It was hardly fluttering while you were doing it.
Aditya, let me tell you something. These videos, all of them are more than 10 years. The last video that I showed was the one that I presented in Istanbul, was recorded in 2009. Other than 2007 and 8, when the machine, and I have the same machine which I purchased in 2004. So why the fiber doesn't flutter is in the instrument that you're handling. So I use a Wolf instrument, a resectoscope, and if you see, there's a Kunz carrier. It goes right up to the tip, and I can see the tip of the fiber exiting, if you noticed, and it has a beveled edge. It does not fire, it does not shake at all if you use that. And that is the advantage. That is why I said, you see, 3 days ago I was talking on a webinar on holmium laser enucleation, And the point that I emphasized was that you have to have the right instrument. See the kind of instruments I have, I can really have a very sharp cut, and I would cut where I intend to cut. And that will happen when I have a control over my fiber. And for that, I need a very good hand instrument. And that is the trick there.
Thank you, sir.
So there was another question about the laser setting by from Dr. Shyam Talreja, but you've already mentioned that, sir. So I'll move on to the. Yeah,
Yes.
there's another question from Dr. Nitin Gadkil that what should be the distance of fiber from the tissue?
Yeah, if you notice, I hardly touch the tissue. I would rather not touch the tissue. It is very close to the tissue, but not touching it. That is the reason my fiber did not break even once. These are, if you see, these are unedited videos. You did not see my fiber breaking, did you? And
Yeah.
it will not break if you don't touch the tissues. It will break if you touch the tissues. It is not an electrocautery. See, when you're using a loop, when you're using an electrocautery, you are touching the tissue. And then we are all, as surgeons, in the habit of touching the instrument, whether it is knife, whether it is scissors, whether it is an artery forceps or a cautery, to the tissue. But laser, whole beam laser is something where you just reach the tissue without touching it. And that is when you will get the best advantage of the laser.
Thank you, sir. So moving on to next question. Yeah, this is from me actually. How do you like to take out the specimen?
Yes. So there are 2-3 ways of taking out the specimen. If the specimen is small, you can hold it and take it out with the loop, and you hold the specimen from the base. If you notice if you remember my first video where I have the florid tumor with a base. Now base contracts when it is left alone. So all you need to do is to hold it with the loop and billing it. The fiber, the polypoid area is very soft. If you see, when we do the TURBT, it really melts in our hand. It is like it's a very small jelly-like material. So all you need to handle is the base, which is little firm than the rest of the tissue. If you can handle the base, you can remove. So this one I could remove with the loop. Now I'll tell you what are the other tricks. Now if you can't and the tumor is big, then you put in a nephroscope or a PCNL scope inside the bladder. Use the endopylotomy scissor to cut the base into 4, which you can cut. And then you can use a PCNL forceps to remove. Never remove the tumor with the scope because it will seed the urethra. It is very important. You will be tempted, अरे ये तो आ जाएगा, इसको पकड़ के बस specimen को आप पकड़ लीजिए और इंस्ट्रूमेंट के साथ बाहर निकाल लीजिए. Never do that because you're going to implant the whole urethra with the cells. TCC is a very highly implantable cell. So don't do that. So cut it into pieces, cut the base into pieces with the scissors, which you can do, and then hold it with a PCNL forceps and bring it out.
Ritya, you mentioned something like the mushroom technique.
So what sir has told, very important method of using cystoscopic scissors. How we are doing is we shave off the superficial part of the tumor, which is the mostly cauliflower-like flowery growth. So there is just a sheet of tumor left at the base that can easily be taken out as with the PCNL forceps or something. For the bigger tumors, of course. Smaller tumor, you can take out en bloc. Up to 3 centimeter, they can be taken.
So 2 more ways if I can mention. So once I have used the morcellator, I had presented that video in the North Zone conference. So that was all very clean field and just like HoLEP, I could do it. And once I have seen in WCE that they are using small endo-catch bags, what the gastroenterologists are using, and that you can pass with from a wide cystoscope and you can catch the specimen and in a plastic bag, you can take it out. So,
Yeah,
but those are not available here.
No, thank you for adding to the knowledge, Tanuj. I've not seen that technology. But yes, I can understand that you can use a morcellator, but the use of morcellator actually takes away the advantage of the end block.
Yes, sir. True, sir. True.
I
That
think
is why I was interested in that endo catch bag thing. That
Yeah, but I told you, if you put a nephroscope, you can really
Yes, sir.
handle it well. You
Yes, sir.
have an endopylon. Even if you have a laparoscopic 5 mm scissors, it passes through the nephroscope and then you can do it. If you have a morcelloscope, you use the morcelloscope because
Yes.
I'm anyway using that.
So Moslater is only mentioned wherever the people have used already proven non-muscle invasive bladder tumors. So where the idea is to just remove the tumor and get rid of it, rather than actually going for histopathological diagnosis of invasion and.
So this question has actually been asked by Dr. Rahul Yadav in the comment section, that most of the papers are actually on NMIBC. If you look at all the papers of endoscopic resection of bladder tumors, they are all non-muscle invasive tumors. So the question that he has asked is, do you, both of you, have any experience with muscle invasive bladder tumors where you have attempted to do a en bloc enucleation?
Well, I have not done it. If I see on the preoperative CT scan, which I do nowadays quite often, then I would rather, and if there is a suspicion, I would not do this, because the point is, if you notice, when I'm doing an unblock technique, I'm going in between the muscles, and if there is a plane, between natural plane between the layers of the muscles, and that is how you can scrape through. If I do not find that plane, that is, if the tumor has invaded deep into the muscle,
Yes.
and that's obvious invasion,
Yeah.
then I can lose the plane. I would be skeptical. I would not like to do it in a muscle invasive. I'll be as pleasantly surprised if I do that and the histology comes out to be muscle invasive. Pleasantly because of the technique, not it's actually an unfortunate for the patient, of course. But if I know that it is a muscle invasive, I would not do it.
Dr.
So,
Aditya?
yeah, so primarily up to 3 centimeter tumor, I go for en bloc resection, irrespective of whether it looks invasive. Many times on CT we can have a guess it may be invasive, but with the idea, with all the literature says you get a better amount of detrusor muscle. So maybe my pathologist will be more comfortable in commenting that is a truly muscle invasive. Second thing is up to 5 centimeter, even broad-based tumors, like the one I demonstrated was 6, but generally we keep up to 5 centimeter with a broad-based tumors. We have done en bloc. Again, very large tumor, more than 5-6 centimeter, which have only pedunculated. So we have done it, but the issue of plane, actually, I don't find it a bigger problem using conventional loop on the posterolateral locations. That may be more of an issue anterior location where the tumor resection itself becomes very difficult to take out. Per se, it may not be a deciding reason if tumor primarily looks muscle invasive. And if it is resectable, I decide to take it out, then obviously we do it en bloc.
Thing with the loop is that anytime you can convert it to a resection.
Yeah.
Whereas with laser, we'll have to. So with laser, we want to take it out en bloc just like very neatly and like that. I'll move on to the next question. So does holmium laser affect the histopathology?
Holmium laser has very minimal effect on histology. It is less than the electrocautery. This is what I can tell you.
Yes, true. What about bipolar, Dr. Aditya? Do you think, does it serve any purpose better than monopolar with regarding to histopathology?
See, bipolar one, which I demonstrated, which is by Olympus, which we used for, because it comes with a thick loop and thin loop. Thick loop is primarily used for pushing maybe the prostate adenoma. Similar way, it pushes the tumor also very easily. So many times a solid looking tumor may not get easily pushed with simple loop. So there, bipolar I find useful. Apart from that particular bipolar which uses plasma, I don't find coagulation of bipolar very effective. In all other bipolars I've used, somehow maybe my bad luck, there have been rebleeds and I have to take patients in. So I don't like bipolar much. Monopolar, we are using conventional loop, no problem.
This has already been asked. So this is another question from Dr. Salim, that are the chances of perforation higher with bipolar endoscopic enucleation compared to monopolar? This is.
I don't think so. Per se, a type of monopolar or bipolar should increase chances of perforation. and different company bipolar you use, there is a different penetration level. Obturator jerk also is there also with bipolar. So maybe less, maybe little less, but there are studies which have shown prospective. There is a study from CMC by Dr. Vivek Venkatramani. He has shown that there is no, it doesn't rule out obturator jerk. So I don't think there should be a difference.
So I guess laser offers a clear advantage there, that there is not going to be any obturator jerk with laser.
Operator jerk, definitely. If you're giving operator block, then it reduces significantly, but it cannot be absolutely ruled out. Laser has a sure edge there.
And all anesthetists are not that, routinely they don't give obturator blocks.
No, best to give it by yourself. Don't trust your anesthetist.
Okay. So how do you ensure that you have taken a deep muscle in biopsy, Dr. Taneja?
Yeah, so if you are in doubt, you should take a cold cup biopsy. As I showed the first case where there was one area near the ureter, and I thought that I was a little more superficial because I was trying to save the ureter. I told you that I took a biopsy from there. You should ensure, because if you see the muscle layers, then you're going in between the muscle layers. It is like areolar tissue when we do open surgery, because when you are using water jet, when you're resecting, the fibers, they get spread, and you know exactly that yes, you are in the muscle fiber layer. So if you are in doubt, if they are not clean, because you can actually see the clean muscle fibers there. If you are not sure that they are clean muscle fibers, you should take a biopsy from that area. The vision is so good, by and large, you know that yes, the muscle has been taken.
So the layer of mucosa, submucosa, and laminae propria is actually very thin.
Yeah.
The dissection plane is always in the muscle plane. It is clearly seen. You are cutting through the muscle.
That's right.
So the next question is, what are the limitations of en bloc resection?
See, the limitation as I look at it is that one is if it is an obviously solid tissue, which you think is going into the bladder, it's a solid tumor, then I would rather take a proper TURBT, because this is likely to be a higher grade, and you should have a proper, and you never know how the vascularity of this tumor turns out to be. So you cannot take chances. So if it is a solid lesion, it is more than 3 centimeters, and if it is in the mobile area, then you have to be very careful. It is not that it's not a contraindication to do it in a mobile area, but then you have to have a really competent experience with you to dwell into an area which is mobile in the bladder. For example, if you're doing under spinal anesthesia, and if it is in the mobile area, I'll tell you that it is not a very good idea.
So does it help if you infiltrate the base with saline? I've seen some videos where they will use the Botox needle and just, they'll raise a bleb sort of all around the tumor, and then they will go in that plane.
No, you see, Tanuj, if it is less than 3 centimeters, you can perhaps handle it. But if it is more than 3 centimeters, it is large, then I'll not like to recommend that, to go ahead with. Yes, if you are used to doing that routinely, then you should. But those who are not used to doing it routinely should start with en bloc excision in large solid tumors more than 3 centimeters. So I don't infiltrate with the base with saline.
Dr. Aditya, you wanted to add?
So basically, where you can actually do it, it's not needed. Smaller tumors, 3 centimeters, we don't need it. You will anyways finish en bloc without doing it. Where it may be actually useful, it can't be done. For a very wide tumor, you really cannot go all around and infiltrate saline.
So that's the end of questions from me. One thing I would like to add, sir, and I'm sure most of us are doing, sometimes we find those small recurrent tumors on flexible cystoscopy. And I really like it, just pass the laser fiber and just burn it, and that's the end of it, rather than having to give anesthesia and taking it. What is your take on that?
Yeah, that's absolutely right, because the patient doesn't even realize what you have done. The reason is then it doesn't cause inflammation. You see, I repeat, when you are using laser as compared to any other energy, whether it is electrical or any other laser, then the idea is depth of injury to the organ. If the depth of injury to the organ is 0.4 millimeters, you can get away without the patient even knowing about it.
There is a question regarding bladder perforation and bladder rupture. So I would like to answer that. As such literature, I haven't faced any. I have gone beyond muscle, and there may be some. We go into fat plane sometimes, but so far never experienced a bladder rupture. But as such in literature also, with irrespective of the energy type, it shows there is no increased risk of bladder rupture. Maybe less in some studies it has been shown, and I'm sure laser will have some advantage there in terms of causing bladder rupture, because laser doesn't induce contraction of bladder muscle. So where there is a generalized contraction, and sometimes it can give way at a weak area.
See, the rupture of bladder technically occurs because of an implosion. Implosion is a small explosion when there is an electrode which fires. There's a spark between the electrode and the tissue. There are basically two electrodes, and then there is a spark, and that happens within a closed cavity. It causes sudden, it is not called explosion, implosion. So implosion, and there is a bubble there which contains oxygen, and that kind of ignites, and that causes a sudden star-shaped rupture at the dome of the bladder, with just next to the air bubble. Now, these things are all noted, have been documented in literature, even after TURP, because sometimes you're looking at you're trying to retrieve chips from there, and the bladder has collapsed, but the bubble is there, and then you try to fire coagulative current and it just blasts. These things have been noticed, and of course this is the limitation of the electric current as an energy that we use.
Probably only somebody who's trained to do enucleations of prostate should attempt to do a en bloc
That's right.
enucleation.
That's right.
Be it, yes.
That's right.
Otherwise, they
That's
will not understand the plane where to stop.
That's right.
There is a question to Dr. Taneja sir. At what stage you would think that I should switch to a conventional TURBT? What would be those things intraoperatively which will make you decide, okay, now I think we need to go ahead with a normal TURBT?
See, I've been doing that for so many years, and I have never needed it because of the simple reason that the whole technique that I have shown in 3 of the videos, it is absolutely bloodless. You can't have more bloodless, and the vision is so clear. I hope you could appreciate it on the videos. I don't know how can understand, the videos are so clear. So when you're doing the procedure, it is absolutely bloodless. I see no reason why you should stick on to it. Yes, in an unfortunate situation where you think you've gone beyond bladder and you need to quickly do something, you may just resect and you may continue and complete the procedure. But that is it. If you have gone beyond the bladder, you need to consider seriously draining the bladder from outside, either maybe if it is an intraperitoneal area needing a laparotomy, and looking at the gut if you have not injured or so. So that is a different situation. But then I don't think in that situation also, you just have to resect, complete the job, and then open up anyway.
Any other questions you would like to take up, Dr. Aditya?
No, I guess they're done. If you see something. So there's another one small question. I think it is asked to me, but I'll also post it to Dr. Taneja sir also. So it is asked, as the floor is less charged, the tumor seeding and the subsequent in situ recurrence is more in en bloc technique. Is it or not? So I don't think so that the bed which is less charred with the normal cautery current will have seeding. Anyways, with TURBT also, there is always a bed available, and as such, it has not been found or proven that increases the risk of recurrence, or you should really go ahead and burn the entire bed irrespective of any bleeding. So I don't think it is there. So I would like to carry on this question to Taneja sir also.
Yes.
Do you think the entire, I'm really impressed with your technique and how bloodless it is. I'm really tempting to use it next time. But my concern is it looks so white because of the inherent nature of laser cuts and coagulates at the same time. So is it not little overuse of the coagulative energy? It may be needed only where the bleeder vessels are there, but somehow we are using it on the entire surface because it looks a lot white compared to when we do other TURBT or not.
So I'm going to answer two of your questions. The first one is regarding the implantability. So what do you do when you are charring? You are killing the, see there, when you come out of the bladder, when there is a base, there is a layer which is the area or the ulcer that you have created. So the ulcer that I have created is a live bladder muscle. It's a live bladder muscle. And it will resist any implantation. As compared to if you char that area, you are leaving behind a dead proteinaceous muscle tissue with lot of exudate, which feeds the cells. So that is what you need to understand. If the cell, and that has been proven that if you do an en bloc excision, the rate of recurrence has been shown to be much less in many studies, and the recurrence has not occurred at the original site of tumor. These are important observations which are documented. So why they should happen, when you use something like holmium laser, what is left behind is a live muscle. There is no charred muscle or no exudate, no inflammatory mass where the cells can survive for some time and take some nutrition and grow. Here, the moment they are in between the muscle fibers, the macrophages are going to come and kill them. So that is one. The second is about your question about coagulation. If you look at the energy that I'm using is 0.5 joules, which is very little energy. All tissues are white. Let me tell you, all human tissues are white. If they are exsanguinated, if the blood is taken away, they become white. So whether if you look at tunica, you look at peritoneum, they're all actually white. So the muscle tissue is also white. When you do a cystectomy, you take out, what is the color that you look at? It is grayish white. It is not red or pink because the blood has been taken away. So it is not overcoagulation. It is not coagulation at all, in fact, because depth of penetration is only 0.4 mm. So you are just killing the capillaries, making it look white. That is all.
I think transmission of laser is only in the liquid also, that it will only be taken up by the more vascular.
So it is not charring or coagulation to look at it as white.
Right.